Good evening, everyone. I welcome the gallery and the press to the council meeting and remind you that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to council's Facebook and YouTube pages. I would ask for everyone to please turn off all mobile phones or put them into silent mode. And please be aware that a hearing loop is available in the council chamber. Staff members are able to assist you with this at any time during the meeting. Please remain quiet in the gallery so that everyone can hear the meeting. Anyone disrupting the meeting may be asked to leave. I would also like to remind members of the public watching the live stream that a copy of the agenda and information explaining council meetings can be found on the council website. Tonight you will see that we have 18 reports in open council and 0 in closed council, a transparency rate of 100%. Reading of the prayer. Please stand as I call upon Reverend Wendy Snook from St Andrew's Berwick Uniting Church to read the prayer.
There, found it. Excuse me for being seated. In fact, can I ask them to sit down a minute and then they can stand up at the end? What I've done is pick a Charter for Justice and Freedom, based on a Bible passage. This is what the Lord asks of you. Only this, to act justly, to love tenderly, and to walk humbly with your God, which is quite simple, really, isn't it? And the prayer is based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So there are 5 stanzas and a little response if you'd like to make it. Loving God, compassionate and merciful, we pray for every land and for every daughter and son of humankind, the right to life, liberty and security of person, freedom from slavery and servitude, freedom from torture, freedom from cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. We pray for a world in which these rights become realities. We pray for those who are denied them, and we pray your will be done on earth. We pray for every land and for every son and daughter of humankind, the right to recognition of a person before the law, equal protection of the laws, the right to effective judicial remedy, freedom from arbitrary arrest, detention or exile, the right to a fair trial, the right to a public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal, the right to be presumed innocent until proved guilty. We pray for a world in which these rights become realities, and we pray for those who are denied them, and we pray your will be done on earth. We pray for every land and for every daughter and son of humankind, freedom from arbitrary interference with privacy or family, freedom from arbitrary interference with home or correspondence, freedom of movement, the right to asylum, the right to a nationality. We pray for a world in which these rights become realities. We pray for those who are denied them, and we pray your will be done on earth. We pray for every land and for every son and daughter of humankind, the right to marry and to found a family, the right to own property, freedom of thought, conscience and religion, freedom of opinion and expression, the right of association and of assembly, the right to take part in government. We pray for a world in which these rights become realities. We pray for those who are denied them, and we pray your will be done on earth. We pray for every land and for every daughter and son of humankind, the right of equal access to public service, the right to social security, the right to work, the right to rest and leisure, the right to a standard of living adequate for health and well-being, the right to education, the right to participate in cultural life. We pray, O God, for every child, for every woman, for every man, for whom justice, security and freedom is but a dream. And we pray for all who long and work for a better world, a world where your will is done. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Reverend Snook. If we could all please stand as I call upon Mrs Hyatt Dugan from the Casey Multi-Faith Network to read the faith statement.
The Casey Multi-Faith Network exists to promote peace, harmony, and understanding, and to do so in partnership with Casey Council and the wider Casey community. We aim to spread knowledge and clarity about what different religions and worldviews believe, teach, and practice. We believe that all members of religions and faith have the right to peacefully practice and celebrate their own religion in a shared attitude of friendly coexistence and cooperation with all other people. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Ms. Dugan. Thank you very much. Please be seated. The City of Casey acknowledges that we're on the traditional land of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people and pays respects to elders past and present. Are there any apologies for this evening? Councillor Cristani?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Gillich, and I believe Councillor Saray will move a leave of absence at some stage.
Thank you. Councillor Saray, you'd like to move a leave of absence?
Yes, I'd like to move a leave of absence for Councillor Miller-Gillich till, I think it was...
For this evening.
For this evening, just for this evening? Yep. All right, no problem.
Or did you want to add another?
I think she needed for the next one.
Great.
On the
Okay, for
6th
this council meeting and the next one.
And the 6th of... Hold on. The 5th of March. 5th of March, please.
Thanks, Councillor Saray. Moved by Councillor Saray, seconded by Councillor Cristani. Is there any dissent to that leave of absence? There being no dissent, that is carried. And we have another apology, Councillor Ablett?
Councillor Rowe, Madam Mayor, is an apology for this evening.
So Councillor Rowe as well. Could I have a mover and seconder to accept the apologies? So moved by Councillor Ablett, seconded by Councillor Saray. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. Moving on to questions and discussions of officers' reports. I'm calling upon councillors to nominate reports that they would like to withdraw, and move to Councillor Saray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to withdraw 7.1
Yep.
and 7.13, please.
Great, thank you, Councillor Saray. And item 7.2, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 7.2, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. 7.2. I'd like to withdraw item 7.3. Councillor Rosario, you were wanting to withdraw 7.8? Thank you. And I'll also be withdrawing item 7.9. 7.11, Councillor Smith.
No need now.
No?
So, no.
Fantastic. 7.13, oh sorry, Councillor Saray, you've already mentioned that. 7.14, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And I'll be withdrawing, actually, Councillor Zitz, would you like to withdraw item 7.16? Sure. So Councillor Aziz, 7.16, Tour of Hope, and 7.18, Councillor Smith.
Thank you.
Are there any other items for withdrawal, councillors? Councillors, could I please call upon anyone that may have a conflict of interest? Councillor Cristani.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Items 7.1 and 7.13, and I'll declare the conflict at the time of...
Direct or indirect to you?
Direct.
Direct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cristani. That was as per notification to the CEO earlier, and you'll be notifying us when that item is withdrawn. Thank you very much. Councillors, I'm sorry, I did get things back to front. We now have the suspension of local law. Could I please have a mover and a seconder to move into the suspension of local law? Moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by Councillor Ablett. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, suspension of local law has been applied. Councillors, we've got a number of very special guests here tonight, and there are actually two guests who were recipients of the nomination for Australia Day Awards and were unable to make the ceremony. I'm just looking for my nice piece of paper that tells me all about them, and I'm just looking to see if David Todd is in the gallery with us. Was before. Fantastic. We've got the pleasure of welcoming David Todd and his wife Sharon. David has volunteered at Cranbourne West Primary School and is a learning mentor with children with learning difficulties for over 5 years. David has also does support special events at schools, such as discos or family barbecues, and over the past 18 months has developed a pen pal program with a school in Cambodia to encourage literacy skills. And David has a long history of volunteering with other groups such as Sailability and Riding for the Disabled. What a noble thing you do, David, and we would like to give you a lovely round of applause and ask you to come up so we can present the certificate to you. And if I could ask my two deputy mayors to join me. Another worthy recipient is a man I know very well, Roger Lancaster. He's here with his wife, Ebony. And over the past 4 years, Roger has made a significant impact on the health and wellbeing of City Casey residents through his involvement in Park Run. Roger was a regular runner and volunteer at Berwick Springs before taking on the role of the volunteer event director. Roger coordinates volunteers and ensures that his team of run directors are prepared and trained to deliver the event each week. His commitment creates a positive and inclusive environment for participants. And can I mention there's a number of park runs now. There was the Berwick Springs and still is. How we were, Councillor Rosario and Smith and I were at the opening of the Hampton Park. And also I'm very grateful, he's actually set one up in my backyard. Councillor Flannery, Councillor Smith was away. Councillor Flannery was there at the opening of Hampton Park, and I'm very lucky there's actually one at Marriott Waters, just in my backyard, so I'm very grateful to you, Roger. And on that note, would you please come up so we can present you with a certificate, and a big round of applause for Roger Lancaster. And for anyone that doesn't know what Park Run is, maybe Roger could give us 2 minutes to tell us a little bit about it and its origins. If you don't mind, just microphone's there, Roger, and just press the... If it's green, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you. Look, Parkrun is a free weekly timed run walk, which was started in the UK 14 years ago, which is now in Australia on just short of 400 locations. It's run every Saturday morning. In Victoria, it's run at 8 a.m. So it's not too early, but it's early enough you've still got your whole Saturday. Most people are done. One of the councillors over here said he ran it for once and he's did it in 29 minutes. So you sort of by 8:30 you've got your weekend. Last Saturday there was about 50,000 people around Australia who took that opportunity to have that free weekly timed run. You register, it's free, and we certainly appreciate the council's support. And with the new one, it's been fantastic. We've had Ken Reedy, who the reserve is named after. He's been down there a couple of times, so it's great to see something has been named after down there enjoying it himself. So much appreciated.
Councillor Cristani? I forgot to mention Frog Hollow at Endeavour Hills. That was beautiful. I went to the opening of that one as well. You were there, weren't you? It was fantastic, wasn't it? One of the best community events that I've seen, something that comes together, and as Roger said, it's free. And it's something you can do on a weekly basis. You make lots of friends and you can go and visit other park runs as well. It's quite an extraordinary concept. So, Roger, thank you once again. Now I'm going to hand over to Councillor Smith because he's got a number of other special guests to refer to who have received OAMs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to ask Jan Trezise and Susan Bergman to come up front, and Madam Mayor, if you can stand with them so they don't run away as we talk about them. So, no, it's no point embarrassing you if we can't see you. So, come on, Susan. On Australia Day this year, the 26th of January, there were a number of very important announcements made about Australian honours, and the two ladies here with us tonight were both awarded the Order of Australia Medal, which is a significant achievement. And we have got another couple that are involved with Casey who couldn't be here tonight, so we'll do those at a future meeting, hopefully. I think it's important that we acknowledge them because they've now been acknowledged at a national level, and we should be acknowledging them at a local level as well. First of all, I'll start with Jan Trezise. Jan has a long history. That doesn't mean she's old. No, not at all. But I've known Jan for a long time, and I knew her from when she was the founding principal of Glen Eagles College. And it was, I just read an article that said it was one of the few schools open during the Kennedy era, so pretty unique situation. She is a former Springvale councillor and was the first female mayor of Springvale and had a lot of achievements in her time as a councillor. But what we know her more for is her role in the Friends of Amira. And for those that don't know, City of Casey has a friendship relationship with the Amira district in Timor-Leste. And and part of that was to form a community group. I'm not sure which came first. Did the group come first and then the relationship? I can't remember. The group came first, and then City of Casey took up the friendship status. Jan has led that ably for a long, long time, and I think she only stepped back a couple of years ago. And we certainly miss her, but she's still involved, so which is fantastic. On the day that she was announced as the Order of Australia Medal, I think you were in East Timor and you had been there for a few weeks volunteering, so fantastic. For those who don't know what the Friends of Amira do, amongst many things, and I think they've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, I would think. Is there a figure? Do we know? It have to be close to $1 million, I reckon. Anyway, it's a lot of money. It's been used to support our district of Amira in Timor-Leste. I've been there 4 times. You've been a lot. I've been there once with you and then with others, but you've been there a lot more. So, and the highlights for me of what the Friends of Amira have done for Amira District is the establishment of English language centres in schools, the re-establishment, rebuilding of many kindergartens. I don't know how many there'd be. Do we have a number? 11 kindergartens, and that's just a great achievement. The one that I'm really proud of, because I've seen it, the living proof of it, is the water project, the Letafaho and the water project where the Friends of Amira paid for water to be connected to villages that just didn't have access to clean and fresh running water. And the other thing I know Jan's very proud of is the education scholarships to girls in the district. And they've gone from some of them primary, high school and now to university. So we've followed them through. So fantastic. Behind every great person is a husband. Jeff's in the audience, so congratulations, Jeff, putting up all those absent hours. But I know you're a big supporter and join Jan a lot. So I'd like to, on behalf of the City of Casey, acknowledge Jan's OAM. We were going to give you a certificate, but we figured the one you're going to get in a few weeks' time is going to be much better than we could ever give you. So we felt it'd be a little bit embarrassing to give you one, but you know that we are very proud of you and we thank you for your support. So put your hands together for Jan Trezise. Next one could take a while. Susan Bergman is a recipient of the OAM. Susan received her award for services to community theatre. And if those that know Susan know that she goes a long way back in theatre, back to the gang show days. Shane Jacobson was a former sparring partner on the stage. Look where he got to. Look now, he's not here getting an OAM, so there you go. Susan has been my partner in crime on a number of projects. The Cranbourne Theatre and the Factory would not have happened without Susan Bergman. The Factory we didn't even think about it until Susan Bergman came to us one day and said, let's build a rehearsal centre, which at that stage was going to be just a shed. And look at what it turned out to be. And Susan's been a big supporter of the Cranbourne Community Theatre, which is on the grounds of the secondary college at Cranbourne where she works, and she has been the long-time theatre manager, which is... and those people that work in theatre in this area know how important it is to having Susan there. We never want her to retire because that theatre just would not continue in the same way. So we thank her for that. Susan has another unique feature for me. She's the only person I know that doesn't have a mobile phone. I don't know if there's anyone else in the world that doesn't... Sorry, we bought her a mobile phone. The Bats Theatre Company, we bought her a mobile phone, we presented it to her. She's never used it. In fact, you wouldn't even know where it is, I don't think. And you certainly don't... She rang me from it. I was the first call she ever got from it, I think probably the only call that was ever made. But so she is always there to lend a helping hand, and her husband, Nick, long-suffering Nick, has put up with many absent hours as well, but I know he's very supportive and thinks very highly of your award. I was very pleased to be one of the nominators for your award, and so I knew it was coming, but Susan kept it secret. I just didn't say anything to her because I thought, oh, it mustn't be happening, and then on the day I found out that it did, and she'd known for quite some time. So, Susan Bergman, City of Casey is grateful for your work, and certainly congratulate you on your OAM. So, put your hands together for Susan Bergman.
And if I could just chime in on a Susan and her mobile story, we were at a Cranbourne Community Theatre meeting, and that's when they presented. She showed us the mobile phone. So on her way out, I rang it. I got the number and I rang it, and guess what? She didn't answer. And I think it's stayed that way ever since. I now determine that the local law be reapplied. And I would like to now ask for a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of council meeting held on Tuesday the 5th of February 2019. Moved by Councillor Flannery and seconded by, I nearly went to Councillor Turner. Seconded by Councillor Jackson. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. Public question time. Each question will be read out and then an answer given. There is a limit of 2 questions per person. Members of the public are not permitted to comment. Members of the public can contact council staff during office hours to discuss any issues that they may have. Ms Frost, do we have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, through you, we have received a number of questions tonight. The first question is from Rahul Pant. Is Mr. Pant in the gallery? No. That question was concerning Hall Road, but we will move on. The second question is from Mr. Michael Drew concerning Kangan Drive. Is Mr. Drew in the gallery? Thank you. Thank you for your question, Mr. Drew. Questions concerning parking in Kangan Drive. Why does the council fine motorists $161 in school holidays, making $150,000 revenue for the council, when freeing up 38 parking spots in Kangan Drive near the hospital would be the moral thing to do? And also, on Monday to Friday, inspectors are there from 8:50 a.m. and 2:50 p.m. each day to find the victims of your practice. This will be responded to by the Manager of City Design and Construction, Mr. Trevor Griffin.
Thank you. The existing parking ban on Kangan Drive during peak periods is applicable during both school holidays and non-school days to ensure consistency of parking restrictions throughout the year. Given that this section of Kangan Drive is not abutting a school and is not attracting school community parking during peak times, the visitors to the area may not be aware of typical school term dates each year, which are different for state schools and private schools. Therefore, it is considered not appropriate to introduce school day restrictions in Kangan Drive, Berwick.
Thank you. Second question, also from Mr. Drew, concerning Kangan Drive. Why have the parking restrictions in Kangan Drive, Berwick, 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Monday to Friday when there is no congestion to warrant it? Was a count done of cars using Kangan Drive, Berwick in the morning, 7:30 to 9:30, to come up with the decision to place the restrictions in place? And again, this question will be answered by Mr. Griffin.
The existing parking ban during peak periods applies to address traffic congestion as well as emergency vehicle access. It is noted that critical patients are moved to other major hospitals such as Dandenong or Monash hospitals as needed, and 2 trafficable lanes are required for ambulance access. Kangan Drive carries approximately 12,000 vehicles per day and around 10% of the total traffic volume occurring during peak hours. Casey Hospital is also currently undergoing expansion works, and this is expected to further increase traffic volumes. Kangan Drive is a main road where traffic flow during peak periods must take priority over parking needs. In this instance, parking bans during morning and afternoon peak periods are required to address current congestion levels, together with the future growth in traffic volumes.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin, and thank you, Ms. Frost. Councillors, we withdrew a number of reports earlier. I would now like to ask, is there a mover and a seconder to adopt the recommendations listed in the officers' reports that have not been withdrawn for discussion, these being items 7.4, 7.5, 7.6, 7.7, 7.10, 7.12, 7.15 and 7.17 and 7.11. Mover and a seconder? Councillor Saray has moved and a seconder is Councillor Ablett. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. Starting with item 7.1, Councillor Cristani.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare a conflict of interest. I intend to nominate as a Senate candidate for the upcoming federal election, so I need to declare a direct conflict to this item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cristani. And Councillor Saray, I believe you wanted to withdraw that item once Councillor Cristani's stepped out of the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm only withdrawing this so Councillor Cristani can declare a conflict, but also to defer one of the policies, which is the petitions policy.
So we can make that an item 7, do you think?
No, it's just that
sorry.
council defer the proposed.
It's already there?
Yeah, instead of endorse.
I can't read that. We've just got that coming up on the screen now.
Thank you.
Comfortable with that?
And everything else is fine for that. Thank you.
Fantastic. That's moved by Councillor Saray, seconded by Councillor Flannery. Thank you very much. Is there any questions or dissent? That being the case, that is carried. We can ask Councillor Cristani to come back in. Councillors, item 7.2 is being withdrawn by Councillor Flannery. Councillor Flannery, would you?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move this in my name.
Moved by Councillor Flannery and seconded by Councillor Aziz. Councillor Flannery, would you like to introduce?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, some time ago, Rebound Court was a squash court and a gymnasium, and as people are well aware, it's no longer a gymnasium or a squash court, and it's become very derelict. The Rebound Court was brought to my attention not by the church at the time, but actually by the childcare centre. The childcare centre asked me if I could come down there, and there were complaints that there was drug use down at the bottom of Rebound Court. There were syringes going over their school fence. Every morning they'd have to sweep the sand pits and pick up syringes, which was just unacceptable and very dangerous for the little kiddies going to that childcare centre. I did go down and have a chat with the owner of the childcare centre, and then I was informed that there was a Seventh-day Adventist church was planning to wanting to buy the premises, and therefore got into another conversation that I had a meeting with the Seventh-day Adventist church, and they pointed out what they wanted to do with the church, and we had a meeting with the kindergarten as well, and with the pastor and the builders that were going in there to do all the renovations. Madam Mayor, I was called up one Wednesday night and got told if I wanted to go down to Rebound Court because there was unshady characters down there. So I hopped into my car and I drove down on a Wednesday night around 5:30, 6 o'clock, and there was somebody trying to break into Rebound Court around the back area. I'm not a doctor, but I don't know if the person was drug inflicted or whether he was just unstable. But I stayed, I rang the police and I asked the police to come down and sort it out, but I waited for over an hour and followed the person around, but ended up losing him at the railway station. But this is a good result by the planning department to grant a permit for this church, because Rebound Court has, that is a very shady area. It's been a shady area for quite some time since there's nobody been there. We've had the clothing bins down there, which I've had to have removed because there's been people pillaging out of them and making a mess, and around that court area it's been very untidy. And I think that it'll reinvigorate the Rebound Court if somebody actually moves in there and takes over. I have had a Wednesday morning breakfast with the Narre Warren business group, and really the only thing that they could have against the church from going ahead was car parking. I made my phone calls to Metro Trains. I had a discussion with them over the issues. I've come back to the planning department. I've spoken to the church on numerous occasions, and it all just come down to parking. But I believe, Madam Mayor, that if we open up this Rebound Court to this church, the safety concerns will drop. It'll bring, they will actually, I've asked the church if they'll utilise the Narre Warren shopping precinct, which they promised that they'll tell all their congregation to use on a Saturday, and hopefully will reinvigorate that shopping centre, the Rebound Court shopping centre. So look, I'm all for it, and I'm very happy that the result has been put in by the officers, and I think I'll pass it over to my colleague, Councillor Aziz, and he may want to have something to say on it as well. But I think well done.
And well done you, Councillor Flannery. And Councillor Aziz, would you like to speak to this? I know you've had a lot to do with this as well.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I do thank Councillor Flannery for his introduction and all the work that he's done. We welcome the church to that location and congratulate them on a planning application which has obviously proven to be meritorious and has won the approval of our planning officers. But we also acknowledge that everything we do in planning in the city of Casey is a balance, and the main concern, as Councillor Flannery flagged, was the potential impact on the trading community down there, particularly given that one of our highest aspirations in the city of Casey is to promote economic development and support small business. In this particular instance, I'm very pleased to observe, however, that the two will go together hand in hand, in tandem, and we welcome a new church and a new community to our municipality at that location. But at the same time, we won't be impacting negatively on the trading community. To the contrary, the church congregation may bring new customers and new patronage to that location without affecting the car parking capacity, which was one of the major issues that we had raised during our deliberations, and one which our planning department had satisfactorily answered, and one which the church community had also worked in significant cooperation and consideration and sensitivity to address as well. So I believe that this is a win-win, a triple win in fact, a win for the church community, a win for the business community, and also a win for the city of Casey.
Thank you, Councillor Aziz. Councillor Flannery, would you like to sum up?
Just, Madam Mayor, if Council would like to put this in a time capsule, and in future years people will realise that I and Councillor Aziz were on the same page.
And long may it continue.
That's not a time capsule, that's a Guinness Book of Records, Madam Mayor.
Well, we do congratulate the church for the great work they did, and we also congratulate the community for their advocacy on a number of concerns and also support. So on that note, councillors, are there any questions? Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. Now moving on to item 7.3, Evans Road. Very exciting. I'd like to withdraw that. And seconded by Councillor Smith. Move that recommendation, I should say. Councillors, I'll just speak to this very briefly and to thank our council officers for the amazing work that they've done to bring things to where they are today. We're looking at an opening of Evans Road in around 2020, which is not too far away. I'm looking to Mr Hamilton to get his affirmative on that. It certainly says that in the report. And it all hinges on the upgrade of the Hallam Road, South Gippsland Highway and Evans Road upgrade, and also the fact that we are going to get a grade separation at the level crossing at Evans Road. This is a fantastic outcome. It's something that Councillor Rosario and Councillor Smith and I have advocated for very seriously. In fact, we were very much part of a rally, I think, at one stage. Well, we attended a rally, we weren't part of it, but certainly attended it because of the strength of the community. We've got Lynbrook on one side, we've got Lyndhurst on the other, and never the twain shall meet, all because of a railway line. We've got a strong Sikh community, a wonderful Indian community, and a very multicultural community in the whole area. And I think people are going to be so thrilled. I remember taking my son to early intervention in Cranbourne West, and I used to be able to drive down Evans Road, up a dirt road and onto South Gippsland Highway. I think people being able to do that again on a really good road with a level crossing separation is going to be an absolute win for our community, but also for so many people travelling along that corridor to come to Casey. So I would like to congratulate the officers for their work. I would also like to send our thanks to all the authorities who have made this possible, to the MPs that also fought very hard for this as well. And on that note, I'd like to defer to Councillor Rosario. You have a question, do you?
Are you aware? Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I rise to congratulate your leadership from the Mayfield Ward on this, because it was a collaboration between Rivergum Ward, Mayfield Ward to really get this happening, and we had the Walk for Evans Road, which was a very powerful walk that really sent a message out, which we got a great outcome, so well done. One of the other benefits I just wanted to call out was with that road open, I can see a lot of good things happening for the local economy in Hampton Park and Lynbrook. Now we don't have Lyndhurst as a community in isolation. With that road open, they'll be able to have more shopping options, and it'll be a lot easier for them to get to as well. So I can see local jobs getting a boost, businesses as well. So I'm very excited by that, and I know Councillor Smith is as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rosario. I must say I almost did my Toyota impersonation when I read this in the agenda, so we are really thrilled. I know it's a little way off, but it's imminent, and that's the most exciting part. So, Mr Hamilton, thank you very much to you and your team, and please to all the authorities that you do happen to speak to, please extend our thanks to them too. Councillor Ablin. On that note, councillors, are there any questions or is there any dissent?
Ignoring you.
There being no dissent, I didn't know what to say. There being no dissent, that is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7.8, draft Robert Booth Reserve Master Plan. Councillor Rosario.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move this in my name, please.
So moved by Councillor Rosario, seconded by Councillor Smith. Please introduce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Smith. Madam Mayor, I rise today to, with great excitement, almost going to jump, but I won't, for the Robert Booth Reserve Master Plan, the draft, the concept plan that we're going to hopefully exhibition with this motion. This is a long time coming, Madam Mayor, with a lot of discussion and a lot of work with the community, with the user groups, with Hampton Park Progress Association, Wayne and myself, and council officers. It was just a collaborative effort to really find a way to bring that facility to life and to plan for the future. See, Hampton Park doesn't have a lot of land that we can just go, we're going to put a new facility here for sports and recreation. And to see this plan now, and it's on in the attachment 7.8.2, page 42, you can actually see what the plan looks like from the top down. And there's some amazing changes that happen there. More netball courts, so 2.5 netball courts. A new pavilion, which, and I congratulate the Hampton Park Progress Association on their advocacy to get $3 million from the state government, which is brilliant for the new pavilion. And part of that plan as well is to move the tennis courts out of Robert Booth Reserve into Cairns Road. And I believe the president of the Hampton Park Tennis Club is here tonight, Ron Lamb. Ron, nice to see you, and thank you for your attendance today and support. And that's an exciting thing, because with more space, Madam Mayor, we're able to then accommodate more people and more activities. And I'm just looking at Councillor Saray. I know Councillor Saray was out there as well, and you've seen the facilities and you understand that, and we had some great support from Councillor Saray as well. But, Madam Mayor, this is going out to public exhibition with the blessing of my fellow councillors. And I encourage, and Councillor Smith as well, we both feel very strongly about getting the community out to come and see the plans, to be able to give feedback on what they think about such an exciting plan, in my opinion, very exciting. And it's planning for the future of Hampton Park, because social activity, Madam Mayor, is how we keep people busy. We keep them off the streets doing antisocial behaviours, and we're giving them something really productive to do. And sports is a great way to keep people active, as I'm sure Councillor Ablett will agree to, because as a former sportsman himself and footy legend. So, and we've got a footy club at this site as well. So, Madam Mayor, with that said, I'd like to move this in my name, please, with Councillor Smith's support and to my fellow councillors. And if Councillor Smith wants to add anything, please feel free to do so. But I think this is a great step forward, and I look forward to hearing the feedback and seeing what comes off the public exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rosario. Councillor Smith, did you want to speak?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, very quickly. Yes, I acknowledge that Ron Lamb's here. Ron and I have been working on this, I don't know, we met 20 years ago plus probably on this. We both had black hair back in those days.
Still does.
Yeah, his hair's darker than mine. I don't know how that happens. As I always say about master plans in my ward when they come up, they're only as good as if council commits to actually doing something. So we're going to be asking councillors to support us later on when it comes to actually adopting the plan. But also, councillors, an essential part of getting this reserve sorted is to relocate the tennis courts, and that will be an extra funding issue, and we need to work. It's part of our advocacy to the federal election, I believe, and we hope councillors will support us on that one, because whilst this master plan is fantastic, it all hinges on us being able to relocate the tennis club, which they want and we certainly want. So I commend the officers on putting it together. Councillor Rosario attended, I don't know how many nights we were out at different meetings and forums, and let's hope it's all worth it.
Well, thank you, Councillor Smith, and I'd just like to acknowledge the great work that you have both done and our wonderful council officers. Also, Councillor Flattery, I know, was very involved, Councillor Rowe, myself, Councillor Saray, and if I've missed someone, I'm sorry. But as for finding a great outcome, which you certainly have, has been a testimony to the great councillors that you are. So well done, congratulations. Are there any questions? Question, Councillor Saray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a question about, I was just reading in the conclusion part where it actually states that the Hampton Park Progress Association is no longer gifting the land to the City of Casey. So therefore, my question is, long term, would there be an agreement on who is responsible for this? Would we be contributing money? Usually when council puts in money to a facility like this, it's because we're responsible for it. But if this is not our building, this is not our land, I'm a little bit confused how this is actually going to work in terms of legalities. So I just wanted to get some clarification from the officers of how this would look in the long term, not just getting funding to get it done.
Great question, Councillor Saray. Ms New.
Excuse me. Through you, Madam Mayor, the opportunity exists for us to enter into further lease arrangements to secure ongoing usage for the broader community of the site, and that would be something that would be considered as part of any further investment in sites that council doesn't own the land for, but does invest in because it provides a community benefit and is within service areas which council provides for.
Thank you, Ms New. Councillor Rosario.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Saray, for the question, because it is a valid question about the future. We've got a 20-year lease with the Hampton Park Progress Association. They are the landlords, but as Kerry has said, we will manage the land. There's a community benefit there, and the challenge is we don't have land that we can just use up for another facility, and we'd have to reinvent a facility. But one of the great things is that we've got funding from the government now to be able to build new buildings, which offsets our costs. And look, in the long term, there are discussions around, and we'll need to explore this with Hampton Park Progress Association about whether we can purchase the land from them so it becomes a council-owned land, owned facilities, and that saves the double handling. But in the meantime, we do need this, and it's going to look really good. I'm very excited.
Thank you, Councillor Rosario. Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Saray? Okay. Have you got any other questions? No. Councillor Smith.
I'll just add that council's been providing funding to this reserve for as long as I've been around, and like Councillor Saray, she's probably got the same concern, because I've always raised that concern myself. The former CEO, Mr. Tyle, and I used to be perplexed every year at budget time about we're putting money into a reserve that we don't even own. I think there's another reserve in the city where it's similar. I'm not sure whether it's down...
Cooter Park?
No, I don't think it's Cooter Park. I think there's another one maybe down in Councillor Abbott's ward. I'm not sure. But I think Councillor Rosario and I are getting a lot of traction with Progress as to a future deal that might be struck. So it's coming. But in the meantime, we have secured that long-term lease, which gives us a lot of comfort.
Once again, well done, councillors. Are there any further questions? Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. Move on to item 7.9, Quarterly Community Report, October to December 2018. And I'm moving that myself. I'd like a seconder. Councillor, thank you, Councillor Aziz. Councillors, some of the council highlights for October and December in the quarterly sector are as follows. The successful Mayoral Mental Health Summit was held in October with approximately 50 representatives, and Councillor Ablett led the charge there. And that was from the City of Casey and mental health, alcohol and drug service sectors. And the event was well received and provided a valuable opportunity to network and explore new and innovative ways to improve services for people in the City of Casey community who are affected by mental health illness. A community forum workshop was held on 27th of November 2018 with 40 community members, representatives from community organisations and service providers who were in attendance. The group discussed key priorities to create a safe and inclusive Casey and a draft set of actions developed for the Inclusive Casey Strategic Framework, and the Commit to Casey campaign, which we are also very proud of. That came to a close during the quarter and was successful in receiving $1 billion in direct and $3.6 billion in indirect state election commitments and funding for the City of Casey, and the funding will go towards much needed upgrades to our roads, public transport, education, police and emergency services and more. There's a lot more to the report, and I please do encourage you to read it, but there's some highlights. But I think the thanks really goes to our council officers. Absolutely amazing work that you've done on all the things that are contained in our report. But also in the Commit to Casey campaign, that was something quite extraordinary. And I'd like to thank my fellow councillors because we all played an active role in the Commit to Casey and other programs. But that initiative, we really did go all out to make sure we made that campaign the most successful. It was so respectful, it was targeted at all levels of, all parties. And we even got a great interest from the Greens, which I thought was extraordinary. So it's great just that we got so much interest and we got such a great outcome. So councillors, I'd just like to say thank you to you as well, and thank you very, very much. If the council officers here today could pass on our thanks to your teams, we'd be most grateful. Councillor Aziz, you'd like to say a couple of words?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. One is always challenged when dealing with such an expansive catalogue of achievement by a government organisation as detailed in this report under every objective. And as I was reading it, Madam Mayor, there's a few things that have caught my eye. For example, under the objective of creating an inclusive, safe and connected community, I'm absolutely amazed that the City of Casey has been chosen to actually develop the blueprint for all other local governments about how to create inclusive and safe communities and improve community safety. I'm totally amazed at the leaps and bounds that we're making in relation to the technology city of the future. And today I've had the pleasure of a specific briefing from our transformation team who are transforming Casey into a smart city over the next decade. And to learn of the initiatives they're undertaking, some 20 pilot projects which are really unique to Casey. Like, we are the first local government in Australia to try such an expansive range of projects to make the customer experience or the resident experience better. And I'll just give you an example of a project that's about to be rolled out in Feb, and I've been waxing lyrical about this to all of you as my colleagues. But the smart barbecue concept. Can you imagine a resident turning up to a barbecue and taking their family and wanting to have a day out in the public park, only to find that that barbecue is not working? What would happen is extreme disappointment on the part of that resident, but the resident would presumably call Casey on the Monday morning and complain about the fact that the barbecue is not working. It would take someone from our depot to go and examine it, realise what's wrong, order a part, which will take another week, and then install it. So in reality, it could take up to 2 weeks for that barbecue to remain not unfunctional. And at all that time, residents are actually missing out on using a public facility that their rates had paid for. Now what's happening is that Casey is arriving at technology where the barbecue actually talks to our depot and says, part of me, part A, is about to fail, come and replace it. And so a person again from our depot would go out to replace it before it fully breaks down. and then the residents get a seamless experience of having a fully functional barbecue 365 days a year. We're applying the same technology to our drainage system and to a host of other public facilities where we want our residents to experience fully functioning equipment and fully functioning facilities. We're applying it to our sports fields, and that's just one example under one objective. And that's how fast Casey is moving to set the tone for the rest of Australia in terms of how cities can transform themselves into smart cities. As I scroll through the pages further and I arrive at our financial reports, I'm totally amazed at our performance in this regard as well. You've got to remember that we are Victoria's most populous city, some 340,000 residents now, growing to the tune on average of about an additional 11,000 residents per year. And for us to be able to deliver all our services and infrastructure within the confines of a very, very unfair rate cap at 2%, which is supposed to mirror the consumer price index, whereas as we know what local government does in terms of construction and infrastructure more mirrors the construction index, which is invariably at least a percentage more than the CPI. Notwithstanding this unfair imposition and the fact that we are growing and the fact that we are required to deliver infrastructure and services without fail to meet that growth, and the fact that our residents in our last community engagement survey indicated that 83% of them were fully satisfied with the way council dispenses its services. Do I need an extension?
Could I call for a 2-minute extension of time? Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Rosario. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, please continue.
2 minutes? I can talk about this for 3 hours. No. Let me say that notwithstanding all of that, we are continuing to deliver in a responsible fiscal manner. Our budgets are balanced. Our expenditure is targeted. Bunjil Place, which has now become, in my view, the talk of Australia, is now operationalised without an additional cent imposition, without 1 cent additional cost on the Casey ratepayers, and they come to enjoy this new facility at every opportunity with that financial framework in mind. A facility that will be fully paid off in just 9 years, given the restructuring that we've undertaken before we've constructed it. So if you think this quality report is amazing, it's very obvious, Madam Mayor, that the future holds even more, more excitement, more services and more enjoyment for each and every one of our residents. I commend the report to the Chamber.
Councillor Aziz, beautifully said. Councillor Smith, you wanted to say something?
I just had to respond to Councillor Aziz. He's talking about smart barbecues, and maybe in his ward they've just become smart. In our ward, they've been smart for years. In Doveton, you can actually have the barbecue heated up before you get there, so it's nice and warm. In Lynbrook, it'll even turn your sausages before you get there, so catch up with us, mate.
Madam Mayor, I'd like this unfairness noted, please.
Thank you very much, councillors. And just to add, in terms of smart items, there's the smart rubbish bin too. It alerts when it's full or if someone set fire to it. But councillors, well, it does happen because we did have that issue there at one stage and weren't installing them as a result, but we've got around that now. But the smart rubbish bin would be great. And councillors, as you mentioned about Bunjil Place, I had a friend visiting from Newcastle. Her brother-in-law is a head planner at one of the major councils in Sydney. She sent him a photo of Bunjil and he came back, he sent a text reply saying, such vision, that of the Opera House. And I just thought, that's amazing because it's not the Opera House, we know that, but the vision is comparable, and I think that was a pretty extraordinary statement too. So thank you very much, one and all. Are there any questions or any dissent? That being the case, that recommendation is carried. Move on to item 7.13. Councillor Cristani.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare let me get this right. No, this one is a indirect conflict of interest by a conflicting duty due to my nomination, impending nomination for the Senate for the federal election. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cristani, as outlined to the CEO earlier today. Thank you. Councillor Saray, just thank you very much. Councillor Saray, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to move this in my name. Yeah, it's self-explanatory. I was just helping out, just to pulling it out.
Had to withdraw it so Councillor Cristani
Yeah,
could leave
could-
the room.
yeah.
It's really good of you. Thank you, Councillor Saray. Moved by Councillor Saray, seconded by Councillor Jackson.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that recommendation is carried. We can ask Councillor Cristani to come back into the room now. Thank you, councillors. We're now moving on to item 7.14. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that in my name.
Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Rosario. Please introduce Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, as you're aware, we've conducted a planning services review, and that review's now been completed and the recommendations have been made to council and council officers, and those recommendations are underway with development and planning in relation to that. Madam Mayor, I just wanted to make a few highlights. This was an extensive planning review. It wasn't just a little one. We had all 11 councillors actually participate in some feedback. We had 112 of our staff participate, and we had over 112 developers or applicants also participate in this review. That is an enormous contribution to our review, and it gives me real great comfort in knowing we've gone out to the community, we've looked internal and external to ensure we've got the right level of detail from everyone before we've actually finalised this review. So I'd actually like to say, firstly, to the staff, thank you for participating in this. Reviews I know are never easy, but thank you to Mr Turner and the entire staff and planning team, because it's been great that they've participated and provided their feedback rather than just being told what to do. They've been given an active role in it. And Madam Mayor, I know as soon as we started this planning review, the team was already well underway and already starting some things. We had the rapid response team, which we saw reduced our planning number of days significantly. They put a number of other incentives already as that review was already going. And it really shows, Madam Mayor, that we're not an organisation that sits idle. We're an organisation that innovates, that changes, and that we adapt to the times. And it's great to see the City of Casey is doing exceptional work here, and I look forward to all those changes and seeing what the future holds for our planning department.
Well said, Councillor Jackson. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or is there any dissent? There being no dissent, that is carried. We'll now move on to item 7.16, Tour of Hope. Councillor Aziz.
Sorry, what is it? That was you.
Oh, okay. I'll withdraw that. Would you like to second it for me?
Yes.
I'd like to withdraw that and move the recommendation, and seconded by Councillor Aziz. Councillors, this is going to be a very exciting mayoral reception, and it is for a very, very special event. The event is actually being organised by Pastor Larry Sebastian, and he's been running the Tour of Hope for many years. Councillor Aziz and Councillor Flannery have been a part of that over the years as well. This time he's actually been raising funds to bring over elite soccer players to engage with the youth of Casey, to mentor them, train them, support them, help them, and I think this is an absolutely wonderful thing that he's doing. What he's also going to do is engage what he's doing with other sporting groups as well, not just for soccer. And hopefully this will take the mentoring and support that our sports groups can provide to a new level. So I think the actual reception will be a very important one, and I do thank my fellow councillors for supporting this report coming back, and I hope that we support the recommendation. So are there any questions? Is there any dissent? That being the case, this is carried. Move on now to 7.18, urgent business, Hampton Park Shopping Centre. Councillor Smith.
Madam Mayor, move the report, page 324.
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Rosario.
Madam Mayor, it is fantastic to see that we've already enacted or acted on the items in the motion from the last meeting. Ms. Bell, you are there. I just want a quick question, and I apologise I didn't ask you earlier because I just saw it now. The potential costs, I get them, but I'm assuming if the demolition happens, we won't be paying that clean-up, or do you envisage just still having to do some clean-up?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we're envisaging that if the property is demolished, then we won't need to go in.
Sure. All right. Whilst those other fees seem quite high, we've got to remember this is not just, it might be in response to the Hampton Park issue, but this is also going to impact on our ability to deal with things like this in the future and other unsightly properties that probably exist right now. I'm really pleased. On the way here tonight, I thought I can't come here and talk tonight unless I know what the developer or the owner of the property is planning. Channel 9 contacted me and said, you realise that they're not going to demolish the building until they get their planning permit. And that's not the impression I had. I thought it was once they got the demolition permit, they were going to demolish. I've rung the owner tonight on the way here and very pleased to report that the demolition is not contingent on the permit being received, the final permit. They're hoping within 4 weeks, but hopefully earlier, that the building will be demolished. They've let the contract. I noticed the other day that the Delta, who are the demolition company that's got the contract, were on site already, starting to do all the disconnection of services. So she told me that tonight. She also ended our conversation by saying, when we get the planning permit, we're going to start building by the end of the year. So I won't comment on that one, but that would be ideal if that can happen. But in the meantime, we know it is going to be, well, we hope it is going to be demolished. And I think the community of Hampton Park needs to be congratulated on taking up the cause, along with Councillor Rosario and I. And I think it's a good outcome, but we're still 4 weeks away from it possibly happening. And let's hope that in 4 weeks' time we're not back here talking about what we need to do to make sure the demolition happens. So, to give the owner credit, I think they have listened to the community and felt the pressure, and hopefully the demolition will occur in 4 weeks' time. So, and we thank Council for their support.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are you
Through you, Madam Mayor. Just if I could ask Ms Bell how the breakdown is of the $81,500, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. As mentioned earlier, there is up to $10,000 in potential clean-up costs of the property, and that includes both clean-up of the actual site and also repairs to the car park. Again, if the property is demolished or the building is demolished, much of that cost won't be required. We've currently already expended $1,500 in obtaining initial legal fees regarding reviewing other potential legislation to be able to enforce clean-up of the property, and then predominantly the major cost is associated with the recommendation or resolution of council previously to review the existing local law or potentially develop a new local law to address similar sort of scenarios into the future. So the costs associated with that will include the engagement of a consultant to undertake the actual research and development of a new local law, should that be a possibility for council to go down that track. And then assuming that that does occur, then there'll also be associated legal fees with the drafting of the new local law or the amended local law, then advertising fees to undertake both the gazettal process and also the notification in the local papers to inform the community of the changes. Once a revised draft is then prepared, that process needs to continue a second time. So we'd have to go back then and get further legal advice on the validity of the wording of the local law, and then re-advertise once it's considered and adopted by council.
Thank you, Ms Bell. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just a question to Mr Turner. Ms Turner, Councillor Smith talked in relation to the planning permit being provided. What's council currently waiting on in terms of that phrase? Because I understand it's at the moment it's not our body that's sort of holding the process up.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Through you, Madam Chair. There's two aspects to it. We have provided our consent under the Building Act to the demolition process, so that's been approved. The application for the redevelopment of the site is currently objected to by Melbourne Water. So the applicant is still working with Melbourne Water to resolve their concerns, and then once that's done, we'll then be able to deal with it from an approval point of view.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Thank you, Mr Turner. Any other questions, councillors? No? Is there any dissent? Before I deem that carried, can I just congratulate the two ward councillors once again for doing an outstanding job on this. Councillor Smith, I know you've led the charge, but Councillor Rosario has been right there beside you. The council officers, Ms Bell, you've done a fabulous job. Please convey our thanks to your team and to everyone involved. Mr Turner, the great work that you've done to try and bring some rationale to this. It's a very, very difficult situation. It's not our land, and there's a lot of minefields and legalities around it that we've had to navigate, and I think this has been done very well, and let's hope that there's going to be a very positive outcome in the very near future. Thank you very much. On that note, that this recommendation is carried. Consideration of reports of committees. Is there a mover and seconder to receive and note the record of Assembly of Councillors as listed in front of us? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Aziz. Is there any dissent? If there's no dissent, that is carried. Moving on to petitions. Are there any petitions or joint letters that councillors wish to present? There being no petitions, we'll move on to notices of motion, which we have none. Reports by council delegates, which we have none. Items of urgent business. Councillors, are there any items of urgent business? That being the case, I would like to thank each and every one of you, councillors and officers. We've had a great council meeting, and I'd now like to declare our council meeting closed. Have a good night, everyone, and thank you to the gallery.